on the build-up to deployment, we constantly receiving videos and lectures that were just guided for dehumanization, filled with racial slurs, Haji, raghead, etc. And these videos that were shown were completely grotesque. Seriously, seeing Iraqis shot in half with a M240 machine gun, just literally shot in half. You see their blood and guts spilling all over the show. And the room, it would become filled with energetic, "Hoorah! We're going to go kill those ragheads." March 4th of 2004, we crossed the line of departure to move northwestward through Iraq and to our destination, a little bit west of the city of Arupa. And we went into this town on what we call cordon knocks. We didn't call them cordon searches, we call them cordon knocks. So it would be like a friendly, inviting, "Hey, we'll come out and knock on your door, and you'll just let us right in." That's how we were taught, but it ended up just being cordon bars away into the room. And ransacking people's houses, pulling people out of the buildings, handcuffing them, putting sandbags over their heads. Whether they were innocent or guilty, nobody really knew. We would go into the cities and do completely opposite our mission. And then some events happened on March 31st, 2004. Four U.S. contractors were killed in Fallujah, and two of them were hanged from the Fallujah Bridge. And on October 1st, we received our marching orders, and most of the entire division and most of the troops in the area were ordered to go to Fallujah to participate in Operation Vigilant Resolve. And the initial siege of the siege of Fallujah were, within that month, over 130 service members died. And on that siege, reportedly, there were over 600 Iraqis that died, and over half of them were non-combatants. That's one of the events, the March 31st events, that really shaped the loosening of our rules of engagement. If we wanted to, we could shoot somebody that was carrying a shovel. We could shoot somebody with a cell phone, because somehow they remote control detonate their bombs. So any act, the line became very blurry about what hostile act and hostile intent was. Everything just became hostile act. If you feel threatened, pull the trigger. Shoot them dead. I was a motor transport operator, so I ended up becoming a heavy machine gunner most of the time while I was there. I drove every now and then. But then, so being that, we were in charge of transporting detainees that were taken from the town. Whether they're guilty or not, I don't know. And I don't know where they went. They just went to regiment. But with the detainees, a lot of times they're called detainees. You really can't call them prisoner of wars, because that gives them rights. So they get called detainees. They can be held from whatever amount of time. And I've personally witnessed detainees being butt stroked in the face with the rifle butts, knocking out teeth. I've seen them thrown out the backs of the trucks. In the daytime, some of the guards, they would it was a game pretty much. They would, in the middle of the sun, this is April, it's very hot. In the middle of the day, deprive the detainees of water, but then in the middle of the night, keep them up all night and just make them force feed them water just so they would piss themselves. And some Marines thought that was pretty funny. I was at a position at a time where I could get out of it, but I didn't say anything, so I'm just as guilty for allowing it to happen as anybody else that participated in it.
In 2003, when the war against Iraq first started, I was a part of the invading force. It was up to my battalion to go in on the second day after the Marines. And while I was over there in Iraq, I noticed a curious piece of graffiti on the walls. I read the saying before, but I never thought much about it. And that saying was, "Only the dead have seen the end of war." And over the years, I've thought about what it meant. It is up to each individual citizen to decide for themselves what is just and unjust. And I feel that has been lacking a lot lately. People are too busy with everything with their own lives to notice what's going on. halfway around the world, because after all, it's over there. It's not happening here. And I feel that this needs to change. People need to start realizing what is happening and how it affects us over here.
I come in, I get a phone call to say that you're accepted for inpatient treatment for your substance abuse, and I look at the screen as I'm being processed through the system here that I was very afraid of, because a lot of the veterans I saw in there were much older than I, and I felt that's what I was going to be part of this revolving door. And on there, the screen was my diagnosis, which was borderline personality disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse disorder. Later on, I learned it was an eating disorder as well, so I was becoming very angry. 2005. I'm living with my parents because I don't know where to go, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to treatment. The Marines from 3rd Battalion, 25th Marines out of Brecksville, Ohio, who were snipers, and along with others, were in it was separate incidences. They were killed, the snipers were killed, which makes no sense to me. To this day, it still doesn't, because snipers are taught to be evasive. And then the Marines that were killed in the Amtrak and the vehicles flipped over. So what happened is that I had what's called a flashback, but I have no recollection of what was going on. I just had a series of periods where I just had a certain type of behavior that wasn't acceptable to people, to include the VA hospital. And as a result of that, they decided to suspend me and ban me from treatment for 30 days. So after that happened to me, I lost faith in going into the hospital for any type of treatment at all. My retirement paycheck from the Marine Corps after 20 years of service is $207 a month. The stigma of having a label as I do, or it could be as me as well, I can take ownership in it, that some people just don't want to deal with certain things that go along with the pain that we deal with. But I will say this, what I have learned after having 12 different therapists within 5 years. Anger comes from pain. That's where it comes from.
I joined the U.S. Army Reserve because I wanted to serve my country and because I didn't know what the hell else I was going to do with my life. It was very important for me to get into the Army. It mattered a lot to me. And it was very important to me to be a military policeman because I saw a special honor in that. 9/11 happened. The reserves changed a lot after 9/11. Obviously, my unit got whipped into shape and we became deployable. So they stood our unit down after tearing us apart. They took away most of the best of our NCO corps and used them to plus up other units that were on their way to Iraq. Sent our unit home and told us not to get too comfy. 6 months later, they called us back. And at that point in time, the Abu Ghraib abuse scandal had occurred, but nobody knew about it because most of those photographs and the actions that are generally acknowledged were taking place in November 2003, which is before I arrived there. I arrived there in February of 2004 and relieved the unit that was sitting there. Most of the people that were in the news about that incident had already left the base. We had a 12-hour rotation. I remember when we trained our replacements, about a year later, we trained them for over 2 weeks. They trained my unit for 12 hours. The HHC 391st Military Police Battalion, that is, we're out of Columbus, Ohio. They just got back from their second tour. We showed up at Abu Ghraib, and the thing about it is, it's very hard for me to talk about the prison because of your misunderstanding. And that's a disservice that was done to you by your government and your media, and I want you to be very aware of this. When I tell people that I served at Abu Ghraib and they want to know what that was like, I typically start asking them questions. Okay, where did I serve? Tell me what it looked like. And I hear about these little cells and these little bars. And I lived in a building like that, and I was really glad because we got mortared all the time, and I had a concrete structure where I slept. And some of our prisoners lived in cells like that, where a lot of them were abused. Later on, abused by contractors.
That happened while I was serving there. Like I said, I'm a military policeman, and I take a lot of special honor in that. I take that very seriously. When I saw the photographs of the Abu Ghraib media scandal, which was while I was serving at Abu Ghraib, is when I first saw those. They disgusted me, and they made me question my desire to serve. These camps, they were completely undefended. Abu Ghraib was in a depression, which means all the ground around us was higher. So these mortarmen that were firing mortars at us had increased range due to the terrain. So we went ahead and took all of these prisoners of ours and we put them in one of the most dangerous places on the planet. And my prisoners were killed. My prisoners were killed by mortar fire. My prisoners were killed by stray rounds that were coming in from battles that were occurring around my base. My prisoners were killed by malnutrition. Prisoners were killed by lack of medication. They were killed by lack of sanitation. We relied upon contracted labor to provide all of our necessary services, and they failed us every day.